Okay, I think we're live.
Okay, and Samantha, you'll let me know when you give me controls?
Yes, I'm handing it over to you right now.
Okay, that way I'll start watching for people.
Okay.
Hey, Dennis. Hey, Chief Baker.
How's it going?
Good.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, just fine. Loud and clear. Thank you.
I'm Nick for the night.
He's in our assistant village manager's office. Chief Baker is participating in some staff interviews for the fire department position of lieutenant. So he's just kind of going between meetings. Hello, Linda. Yeah, Brian, I left the doors open for you. I asked the cleaning lady to leave them open too. So
Thank you.
I'm glad you got in. Yeah, I was kind of looking at my phone. I wanted to make sure you weren't texting me. So whoever has just joined us, the phone number that ends in 3871, if you could just identify yourself for the minutes. Okay, you dropped off.
Isn't that Frankie?
I'm not sure. Hello, Karen. Hello, Nick. It's our Deputy Chief, Nick Eschner. Yeah, whoever that was, they dropped off. So I'm not sure who it is. Mr. Chairman, I know that that Mark Penning will not be here tonight.
Yeah, well, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, he will not be here this evening. Paul Krasinski cannot be here. Joel Reyes indicated that he could not attend. Samantha, do you remember if there was anyone else?
Yeah, that's all I have, I think. So.
Okay, it was just those three.
Yeah.
Okay, here comes. Yeah, I believe 30. I think, Paul, I think you're right. I think the individual who's just on the phone, I think that is Frank Ippolito.
I think so.
I think so. I'm going to write the number down and I'll
I'll
cross-reference it later.
It's 9 to 7. You want to begin or should we wait a couple of minutes?
I'll defer to you.
I'll give it one more minute before we start.
I have that long paragraph that I need to read, and then I have a couple little housekeeping notes for the commission.
All right. Well, we'll get past the minutes, then you read, or you can read that thing first.
I'm supposed to read it up front. Okay, here comes Alicia Case.
Okay. You can read that paragraph first.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the
Well, we'll call the meeting to order. It's time for the meeting at 7 o'clock. Welcome to our June meeting. I hope that next we meet, we'll be live, I hope, in September. So let's cross our fingers for that. Ann, would you like to read the warning paragraph?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Until further notice, meetings of the Skokie Public Safety Commission will be held electronically with a majority of village officials participating via remote access in order to comply with the State of Illinois gubernatorial disaster proclamation. Members of the public who wish to comment as to an item on the published agenda or to comment during public comments must submit their statement or question in writing to the village manager's office, and all properly submitted statements or questions will be presented and read during the relevant portion of the meeting. Written comments may be submitted to by email to publiccomments@skokie.org, by mail to Village of Skokie, Village Manager's Office, 5127 Oakton Street, Skokie, Illinois, 60077, or via the village's Dropbox located by the public entry to Village Hall. That statement, well, we still needed to read it this evening, and I am letting two more people in. I'm letting in Marcy Claus and Ed McCarthy. It's really not super relevant anymore in that the gubernatorial disaster proclamation, as of Friday, the June 11th, everything is open in the state. As you said, Mr. Chairman, it's our hope that in September, when the group convenes next, unless there's a special meeting called in between, that we will be meeting live. We will be meeting in person, most likely back at police headquarters, as was the commission's practice before the pandemic and the shutdown.
All right. The first order of business is merely to approve the minutes. Everybody has received them via email. If there are no objections, no corrections, the minutes will stand approved as presented by the secretary. And we'll move right into our program, which is our final review of the commission report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And
yeah, so thank you, everyone. As promised, the draft of the commission's recommendation to the village board on the Skokie Police Department use of force policy was actually posted on the village website earlier, a few days earlier than anticipated. It was posted on Friday, the 21st of May. It still is posted, although it's not on the homepage anymore. It still is up. The draft is still up and archived on the project webpage that is part of the Public Safety Commission page. I believe there were a total of 11 written comments that were received from the community. There was also an individual who called. This individual called both the mayor's office and the police department this week, and I did have occasion to speak with her at length today. And her comments were, she will likely, if she cares to, she will express her comments at the July 6th village board meeting, when it's anticipated that the document will be, the recommendation will be going to the village board. So she was not able to submit anything in writing. With that said, really the order of business this evening is for the commissioners, for all of you to reflect and give any comments that you care to based on the comments from the community that were received, and to, as a group, determine if there are any additional edits or changes that you would like made to the document. If there are none, or if there are changes that are not substantive, the plan is for the individuals who participated in the small group work that led to the development of the initial draft. The plan is for the individuals who participated in that to actually give the presentation to the village board on July 6th. So that would be Alicia Case, Karen Sherman, Dennis Rizzo, Cornell Collins, and Mark Penning. And of course, our chairman will be there. I'm assuming Chairman Vitalis and I have been talking about that a little bit via email this week. And the village board meetings as of this coming Monday night will again be open to the public. They will be live at Village Hall and people will be invited. So although social distancing will still be recommended for visitors, but any commissioner is welcome to attend. And if you do attend, you'll certainly be acknowledged by the chairman or myself or the mayor. So if the decision tonight is that if there's a vote and there's a vote in the affirmative to approve the recommendation, and the plan is that the recommendation will be presented to the village board on at the July 6th, 8 p.m. village board meeting. If the consensus of the group tonight after our discussion is that there are more substantive edits, then we might have to slow down that process. We might have to wait and maybe even have a special meeting so that the commission can review whatever the more extensive edits might be. So without getting ahead of ourselves, I know there was one commissioner, Howard Rosenberg, who had contacted me the other day with a suggestion for a very minor edit about wording. It has to do, I know, a couple of places in the document. We had written that the community consensus, I believe was the way it said, and what Howard pointed out was that really made it sound like it was the larger community that was making this consensus. And I have not looked at the document and identified those areas, but Howard's recommendation was, and Howard, forgive me, I forget your specific wording. I do have it in my file, but it was to really make it clear that this consensus that was referenced was of the community groups that were participating. So again, just to delineate, that's not, this consensus that was referenced was not the larger community, it was the groups that participated. I will note that we did the comments that were sent, the public comments that were sent to the commission yesterday or the day before were, several of them were from either groups or individuals who participated in the process over the course of the last year. So that was gratifying to hear from them. So with that as the backdrop, I will open it to the group and ask if anyone has any comments or thoughts based on Karen. You're muted.
There, I think
There
I'm
you
on.
go. Yep.
Yeah, thanks. What really struck me about the comments that we received were the comments on the makeup of the community review board. And I don't know if anybody else had been thinking about that, but there seemed to be a number of commentators, both individual and group, who were concerned with the demographic makeup of the community review board, and that perhaps rather than striving to have diversity, we should mandate some kind of diversity. There was also, which makes sense, and there was also, to me it makes sense, there was also some concern from one of the commentators, and it makes sense to me. It's not what is in our thing right now, but I'll just throw it out to everybody. One of the comments strongly suggests that the makeup of the community review board should not, I think she capitalized it, not include members of other commissions who might be more likely to downplay any problems and, may, rather than a neutral, she calls it a neutral citizens review board, a community review board. And I think she makes a really good point. If the role of our community review board is to inform Chief Baker and the Public Safety Commission about what these outside citizenry is thinking when they review complaints, it seems like it shouldn't be the Human Relations Commission or the Public Safety Commission. It should really be outside citizens who are coming to say, this is what we see going on. And another commentator suggested that board be constituted with people who bring real expertise, either in mental health, in trauma, either through training, work, lived experience. And that really seems to make a lot of sense. And I know that's very different from what we've got, but I really wanted to throw that out there because, if it's not an investigatory body who's going to be investigating anything, there's no subpoena power. It's truly a group of citizens who should represent, Skokie, just like any other commission. I mean, I kind of looked at Evanston and Oak Park have got now, so does Aurora actually, but they're still, I think it's so new, they're kind of still finalizing their people. But they're very, like Evanston's, it's constituted of 9 members, and each of the 9 wards will have a representative. It has a representative on that review body, and I think some of the other ones mandate considering having representatives of different income levels, different ethnicities, ages, demographic areas. I think in Aurora, one thing they were trying to do as they set this up is they've broken it down by geography within the city. You know, we're going to have rep from east of this street, south of this street, west of this street, and so on. And that seems to be a better guarantor of a real diverse citizen group. That's just my thought.
If I may, Karen, let me ask, and as I understand it, this group would be appointed by the mayor, is that correct?
Well, not exactly. It's in part, yes, but not specifically. So, and if you'll bear with me, I want to go to that section. It would be 2 members of the Public Safety Commission. So most likely those individuals would be appointed by you, Chairman Vitalis.
Okay.
Now, they will be on the Public Safety Commission, having been appointed to that by the mayor with consent of the village board. But they would be appointed by you. 1 member of the Human Relations Commission, the same is true, likely appointed by the Human Relations Commission chairman, although we didn't define that. 1 community member at large appointed by the mayor, and then 1 representative of the Skokie Police Department. That's the composition that we have currently.
Hello.
Karen, are you suggesting, Karen, that there should be a further description on that?
I'm sorry, Chairman, what?
Are you saying we should change that suggestion in some fashion?
Yeah, I am. I think we should. And if we want to keep with the 5 members that we currently are talking about, 2 public safety commissioners, a human relations commissioner, you know, 1 person appointed by the mayor and so on, then I think one of the other commentators said, okay, well, at least make it a larger group so that there's more chance for the public to be involved in this, you know.
I know Marcy Claus wants to speak, but before she does, Karen, I have another question for you. How would those, so if the group was enlarged, and again, if I may, it needs to be an uneven number. You know, you mentioned that, you know, another community has 9, it would need to be an uneven number. So it would either be 7 or 9, would be my sense of what might be a best practice. How would you or others in the commission envision those individuals coming to join the group, being appointed?
Well, okay, first in terms of number, just for what it's worth, since not a lot of other towns, villages that I have seen are doing this, but in Evanston, there are 9, as I said. Oak Park is having 7.
Right.
Aurora will have 9.
Mhm.
And in both Evanston and Oak Park, they're all of them are appointed by the mayor, kind of like, you know, every commission in Skokie with the consent of the trustees. The mayor appoints with consent of the trustees. You go through an application process.
Okay. So that would be your recommendation, that these, that there would be, if I'm understanding you, you're fine with the, let's just kind of parse it a little bit. 2 members from public safety, 1 member from human relations, and then instead of just 1 community member at large appointed by the mayor, there would be either 4 or 6, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And one other thing, one unusual spot that I found was Aurora, where they have, this comes from January. I'm not sure what's happened since then, but as of January, they had narrowed down their applicants for this new review board to 20 out of like an initial 134 people applied. So they narrowed it down to 20, and those 20 were going to be vetted by 4 community groups.
Okay.
And after those 20 were vetted, I'm not entirely sure who makes the ultimate decision on them, but there were 4 community groups who were vetting those 20.
Okay.
So community had input.
Great. I'd like to switch to Marcy now because she's been very patient. Marcy.
No, it's just a small thing. I believe certain areas, when they elect representatives, they have got geographical guidelines. See, the village of Skokie, everybody can vote for all of the trustees, and the areas are not divided. So if we go along with, I think Evanston is one that has.
Evanston
They do.
has a ward system where there are
Right.
wards,
So
just like in the city of
Evanston-
Chicago.
Right. So we don't have a ward system. So how would we deal with that? And basically, that's the big question. How would you do that? And could you say, well, we have to, maybe we could do something through the census. I believe.
We do have census tracts. Yes, we do have census tracts. We've been
Right,
looking at those
so you
lately.
can
for
use,
vaccine.
population and say, well, we can have so many people represented because they're African American, they're Indian or Pakistani, or they're Asian. You could do that, but I always have this issue with judges. Do understand that there are people that are totally qualified that may be number 2 in the system, you know, the second African American, if only one can come in, number 2 is really good, and maybe number 2 is really good. Do you understand what I
Yeah.
mean?
Sure.
If you're relegated to a certain number, you may be missing out on a very, very talented individual. And I understand this is so difficult. This is crazy, you know.
Well, and it's new. It's new. Melissa.
Right, and it's new. So we're giving it a shot, and that's just my opinion.
Thanks, Mercy. Melissa.
So I have some thoughts on, since we don't have wards, we do have school districts. I think there's 5 of them potentially,
There are 6.
maybe 6.
6
how-
public elementary school districts.
So if we were thinking of adding 6 people or however many to the board, we can base it on school district potentially, because those are some boundaries are already made and we wouldn't have to create new boundaries. So at least geographically, we'd have 6 potential areas that we could pull from.
What about the idea that Karen mentioned of an application process? I mean, now for individuals to be considered, I mean, all of you, in order to be considered for appointment to the board or commission, either the Public Safety or the Human Relations Commission, you at some point submitted an application and it was considered. Is that of interest? Is that something that the group would like to see brought to this process? I'm seeing some affirmative. All right, I'm going to recognize Leslie, and then Linda, you're on deck. Leslie, please. You're muted.
Yes.
There you go.
I just wanted to state that I do think an application process is something that should be considered for a group like this, because while I think it's important to definitely encourage community involvement, you also want to be certain that you're very familiar with. I think that an application process gives individuals an opportunity to get to know community members better.
Thank you, Leslie. Linda.
I agree with an application process. I don't think that that the mayor just appointing someone is a good idea, considering what the makeup is of the group. I also agree that there should be more than one community member. I don't think there should be 6 community members from each district. I'm not quite sure how to, pick from the various areas of Skokie. But I think if we add a couple more of those, then it's more even to the community members and the people that are, not in charge, but, on the commissions and the police. So I think that's a better way of having this.
Okay.
And
Yes.
was there any guidance or suggestion from the village, from the mayor in
No,
was this left entirely up to us? That's what I mean.
Well, so what will happen is the recommendation, however it ends up, will go to the village board. And at that point, it will be discussed. I would expect the mayor would be pleased with what we're discussing tonight.
Okay.
You know, I certainly don't know, but I expect that he would be pleased with the idea of, you know, expanding the group and having an application process where he would make the final appointments.
Okay.
I get a little stuck when, you know, listening to Linda, when I like Melissa's idea about the geography of the school districts. And that's neat and tidy, because that would make it 9. But I understand what Linda's saying. So I'm not sure how we split the difference on that. It is important to have, I believe we have to have an uneven number. Linda, were you? Yes, go ahead. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't there districts, like the police districts? Like
There
what-
are beats, but there are, Brian, help me. I think there's 13 beats, right?
Okay,
8, currently 8.
Oh, 8.
okay, so that's not helpful.
And then the fire department, Nick, you're going to be impressed. The fire department has still districts, which is their districts, right? I learned that term a few years ago. Maybe at a future meeting when we're not engrossed in this topic, Nick can educate us on the history of why they call them still districts. But stations 16, 17, and 18 each encompass a still district. So even that's not going to get us quite where we need to be in terms of an uneven number.
What about,
How many are we actually looking for to add?
Well, what I think, again, let's, you know, bear in mind that if we stick with what we have here, we'd have 3 built in. We'd have, you know, I use the word built in for lack of a better term. 2 from the Public Safety Commission, 1 from Human Relations. So that's 3. So then we either need to add 4, that would get us to the uneven number of 7 in total.
Wasn't there a police representative too?
Excuse me?
Wasn't there a police representative
Yes,
too?
but I am guessing that person is more of an advisor. I don't know. Brian,
Oh, okay.
what is your thought on that? I'd like
Yeah,
to,
I think so. I think the person is there to answer questions. and
Right.
help.
sort of like Brian
Well,
and I have done.
Okay, and go
Yeah.
back to the original 4 police districts. We at one time had 4 police districts. You could just use those areas as a selection.
Brian, I'm not familiar with what those districts are. Brian, do you know what they are or where they are?
From
The
Main
original-
Street and Costner. Main Street and
Yeah.
Costner was the center point, and 4 districts are north, east, south, and west from there.
Okay,
You got to remember this stuff, you know, Brian.
but that somebody brings the history to us. That's good stuff.
So it was mentioned that, so the 6 school districts were grade school districts?
They're public elementary school districts.
So
And
they're
then
elementary.
we have 2 high school districts.
Okay, so, all right. Okay,
But they're not all contained within Skokie 100%.
They're
We
not.
do share them with other,
Dis-
whereas
right.
if you take, I'm not trying to insist on my suggestion, but if you were to take it, you have Skokie residents for certain. And one person could be selected from each of the 4 geographic areas.
Well, what's good about your suggestion, Chairman, is that we're not having to weed out a school district. You know, it's giving us a defined area without having to exclude any entity or district.
Okay, thank you.
So again, I'm looking for a tidy solution that makes sense to get us to that uneven number. Marcy.
I have one. What about the fire safety districts? And there are exactly 4.
No, there's 3 of them. There's 3,
Oh,
Marcy.
I thought there were 4.
No, there's 3. There's 3 still
Sorry, I
districts. Make it-
misunderstood.
Unless I'm wrong, I'll defer to Deputy Chief Eschner if I'm incorrect.
No, you're correct. There are 3
There's
still
3.
districts.
Yeah, there's 3.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, I
Nice
thought
try.
there
I
was 4.
appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay, so what I'm hearing, Karen, go ahead, please.
Sorry, could I just say
Go
one last
ahead.
thing? Because I thought the school district idea was so good, and I realized that's a couple more than you had in mind. But if that brings the grand total to 9 official members of the review board, that puts us in line with what a lot of other people are doing, okay? You know, I know 9 sounds unwieldy, but it may well be that not everybody makes well, I guess we're only going to meet a couple times a year anyway. I'm sorry.
The problem with school districts, they are not all created equal. Some are much larger than others, and that's disproportionate representation.
And I'm not lobbying for or against school districts, but I want to just be clear that let's say if in the end, if the decision tonight is to have those extra individuals be called by application from school districts, just to be clear, they would not necessarily be affiliated with that district. So for example, as part of this process, we asked the PTOs/PTAs of those 6 districts to appoint up to 2 representatives. So those individuals came from their PTO or PTA or their memberships. This would be different than that. This would encompass it. They would live in the geography of that district, but they might not necessarily have a child in the district. Their kids might be graduated. Maybe they never had children in the district. So there wouldn't be a direct connection that I'm thinking of to the district. David.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to be sure. Are we talking about the community review board that is being created in number 4 recommendations
Yes.
for transparency and
Yes.
accountability?
Mhm.
So I'm seeing that there's 5 in this group already. So I'm just trying to figure out how you add.
So if you look at it, there's 2 members of the Public Safety Commission,
Yeah.
1 member from Human Relations, so that gets us up to 3. And then there's 1 community member at large appointed by the mayor. So that
Oh,
gets
so you're
us up.
saying that removes that's one of these people that would be, that's where your other.
Right. Mhm.
So that's
Right.
3. And then the representative from the Skokie Police Department, is that
As the-
person that?
As the chief said, would really just be sort of like Brian and Nick and
Oh,
Matt
so
and I
not
are-
part of it. So
Right.
that's
We're
where you
just
came with
in
3. I
advisory
get it.
roles, right.
3 and you want to
Yeah.
add 6. I get
Right,
it.
as is appropriate for staff.
Okay.
To be in
Okay.
advisory roles. Yeah. Alicia.
Hi, good evening. I just want to say I think that 9 might be a little too much. If other people have an opinion on this, I'd be happy to hear it. I'd be happy with 7, but in response to the public comments, if they wanted to remove commissioners from this board entirely, I would support that and just have a whole new process to get new people that could be. So like the Evanston 9, I think that reflects their 9 wards.
Yes, it does.
I think 7 would be a better number just in terms of the groups that I've had, the meetings that I've had in my role at work, which has nothing to do with this. That's like a good number at which people will talk. But if people wanted to go with, there was like wording in Evanston's document that I did like, where they had distributed the 9 amongst race, amongst age, amongst gender, economic statuses within the city of Evanston, to try to have the group match the community. I would support that. I don't know if there's any people that second that idea.
I second that idea that they represent the community makeup. That's really good, because that's the point of this whole thing.
Right.
Well, but if you have the mayor, if you have an application system and the mayor makes a selection, it would be kind of up to him, subject to approval by the trustees, to make it as diverse as he can.
Yes, but yes, you're spot on with that, Mr. Chairman. However, the commission in their recommendation can state their aspiration. I've been taking notes,
Yeah.
what the commission's aspiration is. Linda, you've been patient. Thank you.
I agree with 7. I think 9 is too big. When you get to a certain point, you're right, Alicia, that people are, afraid to speak or are uncomfortable. The other thing I'm wondering is what about having 1 representative from the Public Safety Commission instead of 2? I don't know how people feel about that. I would be comfortable with that. I think, all of us have worked really hard and I understand that, but what was the logic for having 2 commissioners from the public safety.
It's when we talked about it, when the draft was developed, about 5-6 weeks ago, our discussion centered around the fact that the public safety commissioners would bring to the process a body of knowledge. So that was, I think, and Alicia, Cornell, Dennis, feel free to chime in if you remember it differently. But I think when we were discussing it, that was sort of where we were coming from. Leslie. And then Dennis. Oh, Dennis is clapping. I thought that was a hand raise. Okay, Leslie.
I guess I would just like to state that I do think it's important that we have at least one public safety commissioner on this reboot board.
What about, thank you, Leslie. What about human relations, in that human relations has been involved in this? And again, I'm not advocating for or against. I just would appreciate feedback. Karen, you serve on that commission, so yes, please.
Yeah, honestly, if we could, I think, at least from my perspective, the Human Relations Commission could definitely step aside and let somebody from the community on. And that way, if we did one public safety commissioner and no one from the Human Relations Commission, we could put in the 6 school districts and we'd have 7.
Okay, that's tidy. I like tidiness.
Tidy.
Okay.
Well, and it's justifiable. I mean, I use the word tidy a bit capriciously, but it's just.
I would disagree,
Okay,
because the Public Safety Commission was the leader in this process, designated so by the mayor. And I think for good reason, it should have at least 2 members and 1 member from the Human Resource Commission, because that seems to be the way it was intended. And I don't think we don't need any more than 7. We don't want to outnumber the village trustees.
and Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I'm not disagreeing with you. Again, it's your opinion. I just would suggest that the process that we're involved in right now is really separate from what the recommendation is going to be. If it's a consensus of the group to remain consistent with the way that this process was laid out, certainly your prerogative. But I would suggest to you that there's not an obligation to remain consistent with it, that really you've got a blank slate.
Okay.
So I've seen a bunch of hands. I'm going to go to Melissa next and then David. So Melissa, please.
I just want to say I'm okay with having only one public safety commissioner on it because they're going to be bringing the report to our commission anyways. So it's not that we're not going to be involved in looking at the data. This is the review board who's going to look at it first. And I'm assuming they're going to come to our commission, present their findings, and we'll still discuss it. And so I don't necessarily think commissioners, like we have to have so many of like commissioner representatives on there because they're already coming to us at a later time. And so I'd be okay having the one public safety commissioner and then 6 community at large, or like 1 human relations commissioner, because in our policy, the report isn't going to the Human Relations Commission, it's coming to the Public Safety Commission. And so it's like whichever one I think would work fine. It's at the end of the day, like it's not that the report and the data just stays in one place. It's going to be shared in like other public forums for discussion and for us to review.
Thank you. David.
Thanks. I was going to say that if we keep the 2 public safety commissioners and 1 from the Human Relations Commission and add the 6 school districts, you're at 9. I understand that we're going back and forth between 7 or 9, but if that's a neat and easy way to recommend, I don't think there's any objection. Or I shouldn't say objection. I think that could work. I really like the idea of being responsive to the community's suggestions. That's what we should be doing. So I appreciate that Karen took the time to read through this and really to respect the community comments, to enlarge this and be representative and hopefully be diversified. If we allow the mayor the latitude to select from the community at large, but select with the intention to bring on as diverse as possible, I think that's a really important recommendation there as well. And I think that that could meet everything that everybody wants to try to accomplish with this. So
Thank you.
May I ask for the suggester of the district, what are exactly school districts are you suggesting? What number?
there were 6 school
There's
districts.
No, what are they?
So they are, I'll recite them. Districts 65, 68.
They're not, that's Evanston.
But there is a portion of District 65 that includes what we affectionately call Skevinston, which is
Okay, go
the
ahead.
60203 area, zip code area, which is where Trustee Sutker resides.
Okay.
So there's 65, I'm going in numerical order, 65, 68, 69, 72, 73, and 73 and a half. That's 6.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess what I'd like to do is, Marcy, please.
Just one other thing. I know the police department has divided Skokie into 4. And if the division into 4 is population-wise, or let's say a whole area is a small area, but it's apartments and stuff like that, and it's done by people-wise, I think we should go with the police department division. If that's how they do it. I have no idea how they do it, but 4 and 3 or 7, and that would fill it.
I see Leslie's hand, but I'm going to first ask Chief Baker to respond to that. Brian, is the Maine and Costner, which is right by my house actually, Maine and Costner geographical lines, are those just that geographical lines, or are they population based? I'm thinking the former.
They were just, well, they were picked years ago, and it's basically half of the village, east, north, south, east, west.
Just so everybody knows, that is near, not at, but very near the geographic center of Skokie.
Yeah. We currently have 8 beats that are geographically oriented to our workload.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Leslie, I think Leslie had her hand up, right? Yeah.
Yes, I was just going to state that I do think it's important that we heavily consider the population piece of this, because in other areas of the country, you might be able to look at school districts and really rely on the population that's there. But I'm actually I'm in 73 and a half, and it's a very small school district. And again, it's just the whole population piece, because the school districts, the boundaries aren't related to population, and you've got individuals that aren't in a public school setting, that aren't going to be, their voice is not going to be heard.
Well, they might, Leslie. I'm going to take exception to that a little bit, because again, this is going to be an open, the way we've discussed it tonight, even though, should the will of the commission be to go with geographic school district boundaries, any individual, for example, I live in District 69. That's where I live, on the far eastern edge of District 69. I don't have children in the district, but I could, or one of my neighbors could, who doesn't have children in the district, could apply, right? Because if there is an application process, I would need to, confer with the village manager and with the mayor's office, but my sense is that we would do the routine publicity that we do for any type of application process.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily be linked. It wouldn't be that the individuals involved would need to have a specific link to the district.
That is helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Linda.
So I still go with 7, and I think Marcy's idea is good, because it's 4 different police districts, and I really think that would satisfy everything that we're talking about. We won't get applications for people that live outside of Skokie. We'll get people in those 4 districts, and the mayor will, sift through the applications, or will help sift, however that process will work. to be sure that there are representatives from all of those 4 districts. So I like that idea.
Are we going to insist that the mayor stick to those geographic areas?
So I guess, and that's going to be up to the commission. I do want to make one point of clarification, just in response to Linda's comment, where Linda, suggested, that if we go with the 4 quadrants of the police departments, their former division of the community, we would not get in applications from individuals outside of the community. Regardless, the commission, there's very few exceptions where individuals who do not live in the community serve on village boards and commissions. I believe that maybe our Economic Development Commission is one of the only exceptions to that. So that I would not say it would be a factor. I believe, and the commission can further stipulate that the individuals should please be Skokie residents. I see that Alicia has her hand up. So that's one thing. And then Paul, I'm sorry, what were you saying? You had a comment. I think I cut you off. No?
No.
Okay, Alicia.
So I think for these decisions, it might be fastest if we just took a vote.
That's where I was about
7
to
or 9.
to go.
Well, I think we should vote on whether it's going to be 7 or 9.
So I think there's going to be two tiers of voting. I think the tier number 1 is going to be, and maybe what we need to, and I'm not sure the order in which we should take these, and I'm certainly open to suggestions. I think that our tiers of voting are going to be 7 individuals or 9 individuals. And then I think we also need to vote on the number of public safety commissioners as well. So
okay.
Why don't we start with the commissioners? So I would ask for a show of hands for how many of you believe that there should be 2 members of the Public Safety Commission. Okay, so I'm seeing 3 hands. Okay, so yeah, put your hand up if you think there should be 2 members of the Public Safety Commission. So I'm seeing the chairman, Howard, David, Marcy, Cornell, did you have your hand up? Okay, so I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 5. Okay.
You missed Leslie.
I missed Leslie. Okay, I'm going to ask everybody to see how I got my hand like almost in front of my face? That would be helpful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 for 2 commissioners, public safety commissioners. How many prefer only 1 member of the Public Safety Commission? I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's why I like uneven numbers. Okay, I'm just saying that. All right. Well, in the land use commissions, when there's a tie, it goes to the dissent. But I don't know.
There's 18 people on this call, so
you've got me, Max, Samantha, the chief, and the deputy chief who aren't voting.
Yeah.
Right. And Trustee Sutker. Trustee Sutker, did you wish to be recognized?
I was just saying that I'm one of the people and I'm not voting.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why. Linda, did you have a comment? Okay.
Well, if you can't decide, then it reverts to the original report.
Okay.
I'm okay either way.
I was going to say, if it's that much of a problem, I'll go with the 1.
Right.
I think a decision. We got to make a decision.
I think the more important thing is the 7 and 9, just because then we can alter what's going to be, how that's going to be decided in terms of the public, community members. Do you know what I mean? And then we can sort of go back to the
good point. All right. Good, excellent point. So we'll revisit the Public Safety Commission, the number of Public Safety Commissioners. I appreciate everybody's patience and good humor with this while we try to reach a decision. Okay, I'd like you to raise your hands like this if you prefer a cohort of 7 in addition to the staff liaisons. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so 7 has it. All right, so 7 has it. Okay, with that decision, I'm going to ask again, let's start with 2 members of the Public Safety Commission as part of that 7. Raise your hands.
If I may, Ann,
Yeah.
if you go to the 4 or the 6, I think that'll help us, the 4 police divisions or the 6 school districts. If we
Well,
go on that, that'll help
Wait,
us.
wait a
decide how
minute.
many-
They're not police divisions. They are geographic divisions.
Geographic, a
By the-
geographic
by the
division
village
adopted
into
by the
4
police
pieces.
department to divide us into 4 districts. four
We
areas.
divided the village into 4 pieces using
Right.
the old police
It's
department.
just like this
Yes.
across the village. That's all it is.
It'll keep vampires away too.
Exactly.
Alicia,
So-
Can I just say that we have to consider that we put a restriction of rotating the board members every 3 years. We might want to stagger this, and then that might be tricky to fill that position if we're restricting it by, oh, we have to match all these demographic requirements, and we want them to be people with a reputation of fairness, and we want them to be from this geographic requirement. Like, we might want to give like a ranking of what the goals are for this to match. I don't know. I'm not really tied to the geographics idea, but I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there that these are going to rotate, and it might be a hard bill to fit. If we get 100 applications, it certainly probably wouldn't be a hard bill to fit. But
You raised an interesting point, Alicia. How long are the terms going to be for these?
3 years.
3 years.
2 years?
A maximum of 3 years.
So in Evanston, they had it staggered. They said that one person would serve for 1 year, 2 people would serve for 2 years, different people would serve for 3 years. Like, they had it staggered, the initial appointments, so that there would always be some continuity, some knowledge transfer.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, if I might,
Marcy.
for a short thing, if you want the issue of diversity, I think you should use the census and make things, base things on the census in the village of Skokie. I know it's a very difficult thing to do.
Well, wait a minute, Chief. Don't we have the police districts based on something to do with the census too?
No, it's all based on workload. So there's
Okay.
geographic regions that are similar in workload.
Thank you.
I don't have a map in front of me. I've had occasion to work with a map recently that had the village's census tracts, and there are many. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I know there's again, I'm going to pull a number out of the air. There's maybe 10 of them, 12. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But there's more than 7.
I understand it's extremely difficult to do things like that. But if you want total diversity and all of that kind of stuff, maybe we should look into that. Because there are certain areas that there are more African Americans than anything else. We have a lot of Indian, Pakistani people in certain areas. We have to consider that. And if we put them in a group together, maybe they won't get the representation that they think they should receive.
I think the commission's report, and David, I'll recognize you in a moment, but I believe that the commission's recommendation can again list aspirational goals. This is what the commission, I'm seeing heads nod, that this is what the commission aspires to in terms of the makeup of this group. And it would be up to the mayor to see that occurs to the best that he can. Mr. Chairman, David has had his hand up, but why don't you go?
He's first.
Okay, David.
Real quick, I just was going to say this cross-section geographic of just the 4 different locations. I think that having somebody that actually lives in each of those different quadrants or somehow geographically diverse like that is really important, because things happen differently in each quadrant. Things are really different in Skokie. And so I really like that idea. It doesn't really matter of the proportionate population in each of those quadrants. It's more important that they actually live there and see what goes on in their area of Skokie.
Okay.
I'm just going to point that out.
So we have, so let's just get a picture of what this group is going to look like. So we have 7 individuals, and 4 of them are going to be selected based, they will all apply, or let's just talk about these 4. They will be from the 4 quadrants. What about the other 3? Will the other 3 be, will we go back to what the initial recommendation was? 2 members of the Public Safety Commission, 1 member of Human Relations?
Yes.
Or is it the pleasure of this group that all 7 be appointed based on these 4 quadrants? So what that would mean is no.
No.
Okay, no. All right. So that said, how many members of the Public Safety Commission would, okay, so how many of you, if you raise your hand, oh, Dennis, did you wish to speak? Or were you just voting?
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think I do remember the comments mentioning something about a licensed social worker, someone with some official capacity in mental health, somebody in that, someone with some of that knowledge also being on this particular review board. So maybe that's one additional member that's not necessarily an application process. Maybe that person is appointed by a member, but specifically has that level of expertise so that we maybe have somebody there on the review board that can answer questions as they come up.
That could be a
Those would be
liaison.
nominated.
That could be just be a liaison like the police department.
Okay, yeah, that's true too.
Okay.
But I think if the application process is open, when the application, I'm not going to say if, when the application process is opened up to the community, if there are social workers within the community that wish to be involved and wish to apply, that would be their prerogative. And they would list those credentials in their application. Melissa.
I was just curious about the application process. So we're trying to create a diverse review board. What sorts of questions are we going to have in the application? Are we going to be asking people to disclose their gender, their race, their sexual orientation, their age? So like, how is it just based on the mayor's going to get applications? Is sort of based on what they write? We're going to sort of understand that they might be diverse from certain areas. It's just what, you know, we're going to create an application process, but how do you ensure diversity through that without asking some potentially invasive questions? So I'm just
remember when you filled out an application, none of those questions were asked.
I know, and I'm bringing that up here because the idea here is we wanted to create an application process to ensure or recommend that there's a diverse board, and people wrote all these comments that they really wanted someone who was potentially like African American on the board, someone who has a social work degree.
Melissa, I
so
appreciate that. I think we're running into legal problems if we start specifying that.
I'm just bringing it up as a thing where we want to have an application process, but
My sense is, and I'm
sure of that.
If I seem distracted, I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm actually looking at the village website, and I'm looking at the application for service on an advisory board or commission. And it, you know, name, address, years of residency, education, number of children in school, employer, occupation, business address, local reference. It asks for 2 local references, interests, affiliation, applicable experience. Why do you wish to serve? And there is an option to attach a resume. So my hunch is that the mayor will want to remain consistent with that. And it looks like there's enough, there are enough sort of broad categories within that where an individual could express what they cared to express in terms of what they would bring to.
Excuse me, and
Yes.
remember what you said before.
What did I say?
It's an aspiration that this commission be diverse.
It is.
How it turns out is up to the mayor.
Right.
And it'll be changed from year to year if he's dissatisfied or if he wishes to make a change. That's his prerogative.
Linda.
Well, I also think by taking populations from the different areas, you'll get a diversity there, right?
Yes.
Because different people live in there's a majority of different people live in certain areas of the village. So I think by dividing it that way, you're gonna ultimately get, diversity that way.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. So we have 7 altogether. We know how 4 of them are going to be, it's going to be geographic. The other 3, how many of you believe that 2 of those additional 3 should be members of the Public Safety Commission? Put your hand up. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7, it looks like that group has it, okay? So 2. So we've got 6 people all together now. What about the additional seat?
The Human Relations.
There's 1 more seat. Is that going to be the member at large that the mayor can appoint? Do you want to stipulate that that's a member of the Human Relations Commission? What's your pleasure?
Well, the mayor's going to report, we're going to put the other 4 on. I think Human Relations should be there. They were a significant part of this process, and I think it should be continued that way.
Well, that's what I'm asking the group.
Yeah, okay. Hello,
Is there
group.
any, would anyone like to speak to that? Dennis?
Yeah, I like the idea of the Human Relations Committee. I really do. The one thing though is that, to Melissa's point, if we end up with a board that's not as diverse as we had hoped it to be, this option would give the mayor the ability to then select somebody that does represent one of those underrepresented communities, to make sure that it's a little bit more fair, if you will. So so maybe we do leave, that would be my opinion, is that we do leave 1 appointee by the mayor.
Okay. So David Freiberg just sent a note to all of us. I'll read it. In the description of the position, it should state the goal of the Community Review Board is for the mayor to select a group of individuals representative of the diversity of Skokie's population. So, and I responded, agreed. So Dennis, based on what you were saying, if I am understanding you correctly, you are not so much, whereas you like the idea of the Human Relations Commission, a Human Relations Commissioner participating, what you think would be best would be to leave that final seat just up to the mayor's discretion. Is that correct? Okay. Alicia sent a chat, a message. Can we define diversity by race, age, and gender? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we want diversity. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I have all those in my notes. Okay. All right. So we've got our last individual. How many of you agree with Dennis that 7th individual should be not necessarily a Human Relations Commissioner, but just solely up to, again, by application process, solely up to the discretion of the mayor? Raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3. How many of you believe that individual should be a member of the Human Relations Commission? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that group has it. Okay. Okay. Well, what time is it? Already took us an hour to get there. Not too bad, because this is important work. This is an important nuance, and really, it's important. The whole recommendation is important, but this is really new and really different in terms of this group. And this is something that should, it's good that we're having this discussion. I guess what I'd like to suggest is, if it's okay, to keep the process moving forward, and we, glad to, continue the discussion tonight, but I'm thinking relative to this particular issue that we've spent the last hour discussing, I would like the opportunity to rework the draft, and with the group's consensus, rather than send the revised draft to the entire commission, what I'd like is for the okay to send it to the smaller working group that developed the draft. So that would be Alicia, Cornell, Dennis, Karen, and then Vice Chairman Penning, who's not here. Is the rest of the group comfortable with that small? Okay, I'm seeing Linda. Anyone have concerns about that?
It'll be more efficient.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm looking for, is efficiency. Hearing none. Melissa, are you okay with that? I'm not sure how to read your face. You're okay with it? Okay, great. Okay,
You want to set a calendar on that?
well, I will rework it and have it. I'm going to be out of the office. I'm sorry, my calendar is covered up by papers, but I'm going to be out of the office the week after next. So my goal will be to rewrite it probably tomorrow and to send it to the small group by Friday of this week, Monday at the very, very latest, but I'm going to try to get it out to everybody by Friday. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. What else would the group like to discuss about the draft? Melissa.
There was one comment who pointed out something I think would be helpful to clarify, because we don't ever define what an equity lens is. Do we need some language as to, because we mention it like at least, I think 5 times in the document where things are going to be looked at through an equity lens. We're going to look at data through a lens of an equity lens, but we don't actually say what that means.
Right.
And so for the committee who's rewriting it, maybe just adding a definition like Google, you're trying to find like a really good one to sort of talk about what we mean. So is it like looking at it through like the lens of like marginalized communities, like disproportionately represented communities? So whatever we feel that means, I think that there needs to be like actual definitions or clarity in the document.
So I'm just, again, bear with me, I'm Googling equity lens. I'm going to read you a definition that I'm seeing here. It's the first one that pops up. An equity lens is a process for analyzing or diagnosing the impact of the design and implementation of policies on underserved and marginalized individuals and groups, and to identify and potentially eliminate barriers. I mean, that's the first one that's coming up. So Melissa, your suggestion is to add language like that to the document. Okay. Does anyone take exception to that? Okay, then I will go ahead and add that. I'll figure out.
I second it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alicia. I'll add that to the document somewhere, probably up in the front. Great. What else? Alicia.
There were, I believe, 3 comments where people didn't have the same understanding that I did. And I just wanted to seek clarity with the commission, and then we can clarify in the document. I was under the impression that the community review board would review officer shootings. So we talked about this in the smaller groups, and maybe I'm misremembering. So anything that results in an injury is automatically reviewed by this board. I don't think that it's appropriate if an officer fires a warning shot. I don't know if the public comments include, I don't remember them speaking to warning shots. But if there is a shooting that then results in an injury, it would by definition be reviewed by this board. So people wanted more oversight than the Cook County Task Force. And this board would be reviewing things, as Karen said. It wouldn't be investigating, but it would be reviewing the findings of that task force report. And so I think that there were 3 comments on shootings. I don't know if other people felt like that wasn't clear. I don't think warning shots should necessarily be included. I don't know if other commissioners felt otherwise on that.
Linda,
Yeah. How often do police shoot warning shots? I mean, usually isn't it a verbal confirmation, or do you actually shoot warning shots? I'm just curious.
Warning shots are prohibited by our policy. We don't shoot warning shots. As long as we have tracked data, we don't have any warning shots.
Does that resolve it for you, Alicia?
Yeah, that's fine. So then for the comments, then we have satisfied all of those 3 public comments that wanted the review board to review shootings because unless an officer were to miss a mark and it wouldn't injure a person, then those would not be reviewed.
Okay,
Melissa,
thank you.
Melissa?
I feel like the comments were speaking to the part of our policy, what is it? I think it was 5E,
Yeah.
where we talk about how it's not going to be reviewed by this community review board. There's, it's like historically an average of 1 officer involved shooting occurs every 8 years within Skokie Police Department. The commission does not believe that a community review, as outlined later in this document, is warranted in these matters. As outlined, as thorough investigation of all incidents involved is conducted by the Cook County Public Integrity Task Force that determines if an officer's use of force is justified. And then it talks about how the agency is comprised of state and county police officers, state's attorneys, and evidence technicians. And the comments related to this issue, I think you were bringing up, Alicia, where people were concerned that the review of this is being reviewed by police officers. And so it's police reviewing themselves. And so that I think is what people were raising a flag about. They're concerned that why aren't these going to be looked at as part of that data review? And I think it's an interesting point. And we state fully that they're not going to be. And so I don't know if anyone on the commission has a different perspective that these should also be looked at. And they only happen once every 8 years, potentially. So it's not going to happen very often. But should we just say, no, these are never going to be reviewed? Or I wasn't part, I can't remember why we said no. No, we're not going to look at these in that community review.
Thank you, Melissa. Dennis, I'm going to throw it to you. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, Alicia, you remember correctly. We initially started with this language that's there, and then we also said that we would not look at those at all during by the community review board. But after further conversation, we sort of realized that those should be looked at. So I think that that wording that is brought up in the comments probably does need to be changed a little bit. But I think that we have to be very clear in saying that we are reviewing findings versus we are conducting our own investigations, because clearly this, in my opinion, any community review board would not be qualified to do those investigations. So that language just would need to be in there, that we're reviewing findings but not doing any investigations.
So the community review board would be reviewing the findings of the Cook County Public Integrity Task Force. Is
right.
that correct?
That's how I remember it. And, you know, Chief Baker, I'd love to get you to chime in there, because I do remember there being not necessarily concern or whatever, but if it did happen, there would be a lot of the report that would need to be redacted. And I thought that I remember one of my comments being, you know, I think this board could determine what needs to be presented, maybe to reduce the amount of work that you would need to have an officer do to redact the report. Maybe it's a summary of the report or something of that nature. But, you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that again.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, that certainly was part of the conversation that we had, because if you're looking and reviewing at their entire report, you're looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of narratives and reports and evidence and everything else. And then it was brought up that, you know, you could review their findings, and you know, we could certainly work through what the review board would be presented and what they would look at, and you know, they could decide kind of how much they want to dive into the specifics of the review for an incident like that. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Chief. David, and then Marcy, we'll throw it to you.
But what I'm reading here says that the review board would evaluate use of force statistics and the findings from the use of force incidents that resulted in complaints or injuries. So it's just those that result in complaints or injuries. So if that didn't happen, then there's not thousands of pages to review, I wouldn't think.
Right, but this would add on to that. This would be different. This is the way it's written now is it really removes the community review board from reviewing officer involved shootings. So the suggestion is that we would say that the community review board would participate in those by way of reviewing the findings of the Cook County Public Integrity Task Force. Is that correct? Dennis, Alicia, I'm looking for, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if we should, I don't know if there's a way to get a summary that isn't thousands, potentially
Yeah,
thousands
that's
of
a
pages.
huge undertaking. And do we really want the scope of this commission to, or that review board, is that really the purpose? I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something.
Are we able to get basic statistics? Because like, what is the equity lens? Are we looking at geography? Are we looking at race? Are we looking at age? Are we looking at type of incident? Because maybe you don't need like the whole summary. Maybe you just need to know whatever the diversity lens is represented. Like it was the age of the person was this, their race was this was the basic, the call was this was a basic thing. And then so you can have a general understanding. And if that's all that needs to be reviewed, is to sort of see, like, if every 8 years, potentially, if something this happens and it's always the same, I guess, composition of person who's being involved in these officer shootings, like that's a red flag potentially. But just an idea instead of having like thousands of pages.
I'd be fine with that.
Mr. Chairman?
Dennis, I have a question. Oh, yeah, anybody who was on that original writing committee, are we going to set the agenda for this group, or does this group set its own agenda? Are we going to give them guidelines? Are the guidelines defined in our report?
They are.
So we are setting the agenda for this group, right?
I think not directly, but I think by way of the fact that we do have representation from the Public Safety Commission, that they would be the voice in helping shape these things that we're talking about.
I mean, would they have the freedom, would this group have the freedom to venture into new areas independently? Are there any restrictions on it where, as far as it can go?
Am I allowed to share the document? Because it specifically addresses what you're just asking about.
Marcy, go ahead.
Okay, so hypothetically, and we rarely have this incident, but hypothetically, a police officer actually pulls his weapon and he fires and he happens to hit an individual. Could we assign a person from the village to review it with the Cook County Commission, because it applies to us basically only, to get all the information and to be part of the decision whether it was warranted or not, and then report it to possibly our commission or the police department or whoever anybody wants. And that way, our police department is aware of it, the village of Skokie is aware of it, and we took part in the decision as to whether it was warranted or not. It's just a hypothetical. I don't know how it could be done, but there it is.
Linda, I see your hand, but I'm going to defer to Chief Baker for a moment. I'm guessing that this Cook County Public Integrity Task Force is pretty well established, and that what Marcy is suggesting might not be possible, but I'm going to defer to the chief.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I do not see any plausible way that they would allow that to happen. We don't even really get to sit in and participate in their investigatory side of things to learn things as they go. We have to run a parallel track on our own independently.
Linda?
So it says in here that it is the independent investigatory agency
Where are
It's
you
the-
looking? Can
I'm
you-
looking on E, 5E under,
So it's on the bottom of page 4.
yes, the
Okay.
bottom of page 4.
Yep.
So it is comprised of state and county police officers, state attorneys, and evidence technicians. That is led by the Illinois State Police. So I guess I suggest that we can trust that group. And if there are findings that this new group would like to look at, somebody said, we can give them the freedom to look at it. And, you know, we don't have to say you can't look at this particular situation. But if we find, or even our commission finds that, you know, we're bothered by what the conclusion is of this group, I don't think it's, you know, I think it's fine for us to say, okay, well, we want to look at it too. And we can look at a summary of this. We can look at a 1,000-page document, whatever we decide. But I think taking it on a case-by-case basis is a fine suggestion for the group.
More to the point, I'm trying to put this in perspective. All the commissions are responsible to and report to the mayor.
Yes.
Who is this group going to be responsible to, and who will they report?
Well, they will report to the mayor, but they also will, as we have laid out in here, they will provide information to the Public Safety Commission. Reports of the Community Review Board will be presented to the Public Safety Commission. Let me tell you where I'm reading. I'm reading on page 7 under number 4 in that first section. It's a second paragraph. Reports of the Community Review Board will be presented to the Public Safety Commission. If concerns are reported and remain unresolved, the Public Safety Commission chairman will communicate the commission's concern to the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think I have down what the group wants for this in terms of both the Community Review Board having the latitude to review the findings of the Cook County Public Integrity Task Force and to define what they want to review. Chief, does that sound right?
Yeah, I think you could probably just easily state, take out that last part of that section or sentence and just state that the board will review the findings of use of force incidents that result in injury or complaint, and just leave it at that. And that's going to include your officer involved shootings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where will they get their information from?
Us, we'll provide it.
Thank you.
Okay. And then in the same vein as Linda said, it will always remain the right of the Public Safety Commission to review information, right? Okay.
Okay.
What else? Other thoughts? Okay, going once. Going twice.
I'm going to just add a remarkable job to all of you. No, those of you that have been involved in drafting this whole thing, and what you've done to be able to lead this through and shepherd this, this is really pretty impressive. You guys did a great job.
No, they deserve a real round of applause. If you could hear each other.
We're all muted.
I appreciate your accolades and your kindness, David. And really, it's been just a wonderful group effort and a real, I believe, a real testament to what a group of committed individuals who care about their community and care about integrity and transparency coming together and trying to develop something to the benefit of the entire community. So I think we can all really take some pride in that.
I also think it's interesting that there were only 11 comments and then the phone call that you received, but I actually would have expected a lot more. So I thought that was interesting too.
Well, silence is assent in some areas, so I'm happy with that too. And just a question: you at the beginning of this meeting, you indicated that at the presentation in July, we invite everybody on commission or everybody
It would,
participated? But you
Well-
specifically mentioned the committee that wrote it.
the mayor has requested that the presentation be shared by the members of the Public Safety Commission that participated in the small group work. I'm including Karen Lee Sherman in that umbrella. So again, it would be Alicia Case, Cornell Collins, our Vice Chairman, Mark Penning, Dennis Rizzo, and Karen Lee Sherman.
That's fine with me. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
What I'll do is, and again, I'm going to be out of the office from the week leading up to the 4th of July. So I will be working hard to kind of get everything together and send it out to everyone who will participate by the middle of next week, so that we all sort of have a plan for who's going to participate and who's going to say what. And I'd like to, or who's going to address which sections. But I'd also like to reiterate that as of this coming Monday night, village board meetings will be live, in person, and open to the public. So it is always the prerogative of any citizen, and including any commissioner, to attend. And those of you who would opt to attend will be recognized.
I just wanted to get it clarified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
What date is that? July what?
It's Tuesday, July 6th. It's deferred by a day because of the holiday, because Monday, the 5th, is when the 4th of July holiday is observed.
Is there anything further? Does anybody have any other comments they want to make? I think we've drawn the well dry here.
I think we have. I'd like to just, express my thanks to all of you as well. So.
Oh, I think we owe you a lot of thanks. And on behalf of the commission and all the members who participated, we owe you a big round of applause.
I appreciate that.
I hope the trustees clap for you too on July 6th.
No, it's all about the group. So, but I do appreciate your kindness. I do.
Okay.
And
If there is no further business then, and Commissioner? Okay, go ahead.
No, that's it. I don't have anything else.
In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to make a
motion. So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. And on that note, I wish you all a good evening. We'll see each other soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, and
everyone.
thanks to
Good night.
Samantha for running the controls
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. Good night.
Yes, thanks.